Hi, this is Pat Iyer with Legal Nurse Podcast. I am bringing to you today Gerry Foster, who is a brand evangelist, and he's got a significant number that caught my attention when I was going through his bio, that he's helped over 100,000 small businesses from over 600 industries since 1985. I think that Gerry understands branding. So welcome to the show, Gerry. I appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you, Pat. It's an honor to be here.
Branding is an issue that many legal nurse consultants face, trying to differentiate themselves in a market where many of the providers seem the same. Can you tell us, what does it mean to have a brand that's specific to your company?
It means to have a distinct identity, which simply means that you're putting something out into the marketplace that is looked upon as being fresh, unique, and original. And more importantly, they cannot find it anywhere else. But the operative word there is to be distinct, to make sure that you are standing out, getting noticed, and being remembered for offering something that is really, really invaluable to someone as well.
How do you go about finding that distinct, unique offer or service or attribute?
Well, the first decision that a service-based entrepreneur has to make, and when I say service-based entrepreneur, of course, it could be the nurses, but anyone who has a business who looks upon himself or herself as a self-employed professional, a solo professional, solopreneur, whatever word you want to use. And they made the decision to put a brand out into the world as opposed to simply services. So when you make the decision that you're going to put out something that is a brand, you're making the decision that you're not going to appear as being bland. Big distinction there, Pat. Because a lot of people who simply put out services, they end up blending in with the rest of the crowd and not standing out. So the first thing they have to do is make that decision that, yes, I really do want to put out a brand. And then secondly, you have to nail down, what is it? That one thing that makes you special, that makes you as appealing and interesting and compelling and memorable as possible. And that's the heart of it all.
I think that legal nurse consultants, because we are nurses, would tend to say, well, I'm nice to work with. I make you feel special. I provide high quality services. Is that enough? Is that unique and distinctive enough as a brand promise?
No, not enough at all, because that's kind of plain vanilla, as opposed to plain vanilla plus some toppings and some chocolate fudge and some whipped cream and all the toppings. Because think about it. If all you're saying is what you just said, someone else can say the exact same thing. That's what I mean by plain vanilla. So you have to do all that you can to make your brand as mouth-watering as possible. Now, when you think about that, you don't want to simply say what you offer that not only sounds like someone else in your field, just another nurse, because when you do that, you are allowing yourself to be commoditized. You're looked upon as another slice in the loaf. You're looked upon as another penguin in the group. You're looked upon as just being another face in the crowd. So, and our listeners and viewers should write this down. Ask yourself, what do people expect from you as a nurse? What do they expect to receive from you? And then once you nail down what that is, Pat, go beyond it to say, I do that and more, because the heart of a brand means that you're going to create what's called brand preference, which means you're giving people a reason to choose you over other choices because they feel that you offer something they cannot get anywhere else.
And I think that that's a challenge. And I know it's a challenge for people in many industries. A lot of nurses get into the field, go through a an educational program where they're taught how to describe their services, they're not always taught to articulate what's the outcome of those services for the customer. But I do this, I do this, I do this, but they miss the piece that says, so that you, the attorney, can achieve these benefits.
Absolutely.
And when we come out of the same program and we put up websites that have the same language in every legal nurse consultant site, they don't stand out as being distinct or different. So the attorney is just sometimes going down the list saying, well, how much do you charge? Oh, you charge 150. Well, let me see if I can find somebody who charges 140. Or one guy who called me up when I was running my legal nurse consulting business and said, I just got a quote of $60 an hour from a legal nurse consultant. Can you do better? And I thought, well, better for you or better for me? Like, I'm not playing that game with you. I said, no, we charge a lot more than we charge a lot more than $60 an hour. So no, I can't do better than that. When you get questions like that from a client, what does that say about the mindset of that individual who's making those calls?
Well, first off, the client has every right to ask those questions, make those comments, if you do not give them a reason not to. Because as I said a minute ago, either you're a brand or you're bland, either you're plain vanilla or something mouthwatering. I mean, it's that choice. So now, from that perspective, a nurse has to basically embrace the idea that a brand is the promise of an experience. How are you going to make your client, your patient, whoever you're serving, how are they going to feel as a result of receiving this experience that you have? And I tell you, Pat, if you took something as simple as how does a nurse serve and take care of the people that she's being called to serve, there's probably a certain way that every nurse goes about that separates her from everyone else. So part of branding, and Pat, as you know, my specialty is on how to brand expertise, because there's 5 types of brands. You can brand a company, a product, a service, a nonprofit, or yourself as a personal brand. So let's take personal brands. A nurse, for example, she has a skill, or they have a skill, a gift, a talent, and ability. The question becomes, how do you go about providing that level of care and attention and nurturing, all the things that allows you to take care of someone? How do you go about doing it in a way that sets you apart from other people? So anyone who says, well, Gerry, we all pretty much have the same training, we've gone to the same schools, we took the same exams, we pretty much all do the same thing, I go, wait a minute. Unless you have a twin, no one thinks like you. No one nurtures like you. No one follows up like you. No one solves problems like you. And so therefore, as a nurse, you have to embrace the idea that you are born to be distinct, that you are perpetually rare, that you are designer made and not off the shelf or off the rack. And so now that nurse starts thinking, yeah, maybe I go about serving people like no one else can. And so part of what I do is help someone find what's called their brand DNA, the way you think, the way you solve problems, the way you follow up, your wisdom, your perspectives, what you've studied, what you've learned, your training, everything comes together that allows you to put a smile on the face of the person because you are delivering value in a way no one else can. So it does start with the mindset. You're right about that, Pat. I'm glad you said that word, because you have to first believe that you're not like everybody else. Okay? Because the moment you think you are, like I said, you're just another slice in a loaf, penguin in the group, bird in the flock. You're just a bottle of water, a carton of milk, a piece of furniture. I have all types of branding cliches, Pat. But see, brands like Starbucks and Nike, has shown us as consumers that the products they offer are less important than the brands they market and sell because of the experience of the brand. Nike is not in the business of selling shoes and merchandise. Their brand is about belief, authentic athletic performance. The Starbucks brand is not serving up coffee, sugar, and cream. He built that brand around the idea of providing a unique coffee experience unlike no other.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Robbins is not in the business of selling life coaching or motivational speaking. He declared years ago that what his work is about is life on your own terms. Oprah built her brand around lead your fulfilled life. John Maxwell, live out leadership. Les Brown, live your dreams. And then he morphed into you have greatness within. Airbnb is not in the business of home rentals. They're in the business of people belonging anywhere. What's my point? And so the nurse has to look beyond what it is that she does and focus more on, to your words, the results, the outcome, and how she goes about delivering those desired, even required outcomes for the people that she's serving, unlike anybody else. And she has that, or he has that, okay? Because if I were to pose a question to a nurse, a simple question, nurse, let me ask you this. What do you do best that few others in your field really know how to do? That comes easy to you and probably hard to most others. And I bet you, Pat, that nurse, if she thought about it or he thought about it, that answer would come up for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of us are excelling at something. Either we excel at solving problems, or we excel at delivering better outcomes, or we excel at making the impossible possible. Maybe the nurse says that they can take something that seems impossible in terms of their duties and make it possible because nobody else has that level of dedication or those smarts. Or maybe there's some kind of emotional payoff in terms of how they're serving the person they're being called to serve, that says, if with this nurse, that person doesn't feel frustrated anymore, unloved or lost or confused or overwhelmed or scared or frightened. Oh my God, Pat, there's so many emotions and negative emotions here. So you start to think about it. And I'm talking to the nurses out there. You've got to not think about yourself, but think about the people you're serving. You're in the business of helping people achieve what they want to achieve and become who they want to become through the loving care that you provide. It's not about you. It's about the patients. It's about the people you're serving. And that's why brands are so desired and beloved around the world, because of a brand, you know what you're going to get. So I think for a lot, and I know I'm going long on this, but as you know, they do call me the brand evangelist, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. The nurse has to look beyond the veil. They have to look beyond what they can see and think in terms of what matters the most to the person they're being called to serve. What will resonate with them and land with them? What matters the most to them, and build their brand around their unique gift and talent to deliver that unlike nobody else, because there's only one you.
Well, just before we started recording, Gerry, I was talking to an attorney I'm working with, and he said, I had a meeting with my partners yesterday, and I told them that everything that Pat touches turns out smoothly. Unlike some of the people who are our employees who work in this law firm. And he was talking about his stress level in particular. And I realized that what I do for him is make his life less stressful, because he can rely on me to complete the assignments that he's giving me. And I'm always there to fill in the holes for him.
Yeah. You're in the business of making him feel less stressful.
Yes.
You're in the business of making sure that there's no hassles. You're in the business of making him feel that there's not going to be any surprises. That's what he's paying for. He's not paying for the skills per se. If you took automotive branding, for example, consumers don't care about what goes on underneath the hood of the car. What they want to know is how they're going to feel behind the wheel of the car.
Right.
So for years, Pontiac, excitement, excitement, Pontiac. Remember that? BMW, power, Volvo, safety, Corvette, or Mitsubishi, fun, and Corvette, it's slick, right? Mercedes, prestige. So you have to understand that as a nurse, you are in a very emotional business. And so the brand has to be configured and put together a certain way whereby you're touching hearts through the gifts of your hands. That's what you're doing in terms of how you're serving that guy, through your hands, through your knowledge, through your perspectives, through everything that Pat knows how to do that allows you to say, everything will be smooth. There will be no surprises.
Before we continue the podcast, please spend a few minutes getting to know one of the guest speakers who will be presenting at our September 23, 24, 25 2021 Virtual Legal Nurse Consulting Conference. After you have a chance to meet this guest, we'll resume the podcast.
Are you looking for a new career path within nursing, or are you looking to expand your legal nursing practice? I am Barbara Levin, and together with my colleague and friend, Patricia Iyer, we invite you to the 4th Legal Nurse Consulting Success Virtual Conference, September 23, 24, 25, 2021. You will network with legal nurses, attorneys, and many other specialists and learn new ideas to implement within your practice. We have an exciting lineup of topics and speakers. Mining for Data is being presented by Diane Tomicelli, who is a seasoned nurse and owner of Tomicelli's Legal Nurse Consulting practice. She has lots of experience working with electronic medical records after working in critical care, emergency nursing, and nursing management. She is known in the industry for her ability to complete complex transformation programs with attention to all clinical, financial, logistical components in a successful manner. Can you share with us a little bit about your tricks of the trade for the electronic records and what you're going to be sharing with our group?
Absolutely. Thank you, Barbara. And I do have to reiterate with you, the conference is wonderful. I've attended the last 2 conferences and have gained a great deal of information. So this conference is definitely a great opportunity, even if you are an experienced LNC, to boost your career as well as pick up some additional tricks of the trade. So specifically, I will be talking about how to review electronic medical records in a printed version. There are so many different tricks of the trade that you can look at that might identify an additional software system that you want to look at when reviewing these medical records. In addition, there's a very specific lingo that you need to learn when asking for specific things from a hospital, or you want your attorney client to go and ask for something specific. So during the conference, we will be going over the different types of electronic data, because it's not just what you're getting from the EMR. Believe it or not, there are multiple forms of electronic data that you really need to look at when you're thoroughly reviewing a chart. And that could be email or a phone as well. Some of the other things is there's different types of interfaces that you may not know about. An interface is a connection to the main software system at the hospital. And those interfaces, those other software systems, may contain data that will help your case. So looking forward to sharing that information with you.
I am looking so forward to hearing more about your presentation and learning about the specific language that legal nurses need to then share with their clients. And I'm sure that you'll be presenting some case studies.
Absolutely.
Well, please join us on this virtual journey with exciting education and opportunities to meet the experts on September 23, 24, 25, 2021. Please see the link below, lnc.tips/September 2021 virtual. We look forward to seeing you.
Now you've had a chance to meet one of our esteemed speakers for our September 23, 24, and 25, 2021 Legal Nurse Consulting virtual conference planned by Barbara Levin and I for you. Be sure to get your seat reserved at this link, http://lnc.tips/September 2021 virtual. I'll see you there. And boy, attorneys hate surprises, Gerry, especially when their adversary springs it on them. Oh, you didn't know this about your client? Well, it's in the medical records. That is a terrible, terrible experience for the attorney who then looks like a fool.
Oh,
because he doesn't
exactly.
realize this particularly damaging fact about
Exactly.
the plaintiff.
Yeah, because your technical skills, the technicalities of everything you do ends up in a result. What the client is paying for is the result. So that result is always a benefit. It's always in terms of what they're going to gain. It can be emotional, quantitative, qualitative, functional, but it's more about what the client is going to gain more so than what it is that you do. Now, the doing this becomes important from the perspective of being able to say, I have a process as a nurse, a process, a system. I have a path I'm going to put you on. I have a method. I have a special way of serving you that allows that outcome to occur. And Pat, that's called your secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And so a nurse today has to find his or her secret sauce. The way you go about doing what you do, the ingredients that you put into that special recipe that are all yours, based on that DNA, as I mentioned earlier before. And then you can turn that into your one-of-a-kind delivery system, process, method, whatever word you want to use, and that becomes your identity. It's called a core differentiator. It's one of the key things that sets you apart. So you're not blending in with the rest of the crowd. Because when you blend in with everybody else, not only are you not standing out, you're invisible. And that's a horrible way to go through life.
Yes, it is.
To know that you've got something special and no one's even paying attention to you. And that's a branding issue, not a marketing issue. See, that's the thing, Pat. People get it confused. They think it's a marketing. No, there's a sequence, brand, market, sell. You first have to nail down your brand and then you market and sell your brand.
Yes.
And your brand is not your logo. See, that's the other problem, Pat. We haven't talked about that. You say the word brand and people think it's their logo. They think it's their website. They think it's their pictures, their photography, the pictorials, the aesthetics. No. That doesn't give people what's called a whole brand, which means you're putting something out into the marketplace that people can literally fall in love with and go, wow, that's mouthwatering. Wow, I want that. And then the job of marketing is to get people to notice that, want that uniqueness, want that delivery. But if the nurse is plain vanilla, she hasn't found her flavor. You got to find your flavor and know that it's yours and nobody else has it. Does this make sense?
It does. It does. And as I'm listening to you, Gerry, I'm thinking, I just shared with you what my client said about me. Is there value in talking to your clients and saying, how do I make you feel? How am I different than other legal nurse consultants you might have worked with? What makes you come back to me over and over again? Does that type of inquiry help in terms of defining the secret sauce? When you were talking a few minutes ago, Gerry, I was thinking about this vanilla concept. Would it be of value, do you think, for a legal nurse consultant to talk to her clients and find out what sets that legal nurse consultant apart from other people in the field? Is there value in obtaining that information?
There is value. Whenever you look at your own credentials, of course, your resume, your trainings, your certifications, your experience, your knowledge, of course. However, you don't want to end it there because anybody can match or beat a resume.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts with embracing as an idea, no one has your thumbprint. Nurses know more about DNA than anybody else. That's what they deal with all the time. It's yours. It's one of a kind. And so you have to look beyond what's on the resume and look more at how you serve, how you go about doing it, what your values are, what goes into you being able to provide an experience beyond what people expect. That's how Richard Branson built Virgin. His Airways, he decided to go ahead and give people in coaching and economy a first-class experience. Whoa, that's not an expectation when you fly economy or coach that you're going to feel like you're in first class. The genius of Walt Disney was people didn't want to come and see Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and find out about Tomorrowland and Adventureland. No, he built a brand around the idea of it being the happiest place on earth. So a nurse has to think more about what occurs for the people they're treating and serving. How do they feel? And what is special that goes into how you do what you do? Maybe beyond the training, it's more about the level of care, the attention, how heartfelt you are. Perhaps you are a face or voice of inspiration to someone. Maybe you have certain healing powers that are very special to you. Now, of course, when I say that, I don't mean that in terms of, but you know what I mean. Yeah, yes. I mean, I think that when you get in touch with what your unique gift is to the world, and that means tapping into your sacred self. It means tapping into your inner power, embracing it, and then bringing that to life through the magic of how you serve. And if a nurse, if all that nurse does is talk about their background and share their biography or their resume, and it looks like and sounds like everybody else, my God, you went from swimming in what's called blue ocean market space, where there's you and everybody else, you went from blue ocean to red ocean. Now you're in shark infested red waters, because now you went from being a brand to a product, a commodity. You're an imitator as opposed to being an innovator. Now, the challenge with a lot of nurses, though, and as you know, I've been doing this work for quite a while, since Jesus wore sandals. Okay, I started my company in 1985, over 100,000 businesses, like you said. One of the biggest challenges for nurses in particular is that they were taught to focus on being the best nurse possible. And I understand that. And they are doing what they feel they're being paid to do. Now, that's fine if you just want to be an employee, if you just want to pick up a paycheck. But like you said, you've got some nurses who want to be independent, right? They want to do something on their own business. Who knows? So now you have to go beyond the idea of sounding like and acting like everybody else, and to start thinking about what those special traits are that set you apart, that are going to be compelling and interesting enough, which means from a mindset standpoint, the nurse has to be willing to deviate and not conform, to step outside their comfort zone, step outside the 9 dots, the boxes, as they speak, go out there where no one else has been before. It may be a little uncomfortable for that nurse, but that's where the magic happens, is when you see yourself as an innovator and not an imitator, where you've made the decision to go beyond what the world has seen before. And that's what great brands have done. I mean, the world is filled with incredible entrepreneurs who dare to be different.
Yes.
Right?
The people who came up with that approach that was immediately understandable, capturing the attention of their audience. Yeah, there's a certain creativity and probably a lot of market research behind coming up with the slogans of the companies that you mentioned earlier in this podcast.
And and they look out into their industry, and they ask themselves one biggest question: what's the biggest complaint that the customer has?
Mm-hmm.
What are they sick and tired of putting up with? What would they like to have work better? If they could wave a magic wand from their perspective, what would they like to have show up? And there's always a complaint in any industry that presents an opportunity. So that again gets back to thinking the way the customer thinks, the patient, right? Who they're serving. Because in branding, you never create a new conversation. You enter into the conversation that's already inside the head of the person you're serving, step into their reality, because it's never about you. It's never about us. It's about the people we're serving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it from their angle, they're upset about something. What Bezos did with Amazon, when you think about it in the big picture sense, remember what it was like when we would order online? Delivery time, 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks. I mean, it was crazy, right? Remember those days?
Yeah.
Now,
First, we had to overcome the fear of putting our credit card into an order form. That was the number one step.
yes.
Do I trust them that they're not going to steal my credit card?
Exactly.
Then yes, then the long delivery times.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're in Prime. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you submit your order, you may get it that same night.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah. What are people looking for that they presently cannot find? Where's that gap in the marketplace? So great brands of any type put something out into the world that the world has never heard or seen before. Now, it's hard for a nurse, going back to the question about resumes and credentials, it's hard for the nurse to do this on their own because you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. You can't see yourself inside the picture frame. And so sometimes you've got to put yourself in a learning environment so you can get some training and some coaching, especially in this area called branding, so that you have you can achieve what's called brand preference, which means you have to give people a reason to choose you over other alternatives. Pat, not long ago, I was telling people on another Zoom call, I said, in the pandemic, I don't cook. I'm a takeout and delivery guy. Now I'm learning how to cook. I took some cooking lessons. But here in America, when I want something delivered, I use Grubhub. There's nothing wrong with Uber Eats. There's nothing wrong with DoorDash. I have a preference for Grubhub. When it comes to rideshare, before the pandemic, when I was flying all over the country, speaking here and speaking there, my favorite rideshare is Lyft. Nothing wrong with Uber. I prefer Lyft. Now, in this world that we live in, which is a brand conscious world, so nurse, first get that into your head. We live in a brand conscious world. You go online, it's about your brand. Celebrities, about your brand, right? We prefer brands. Why is that? Why are we so brand conscious? Because we know what we're going to get from that brand. And so everybody has all these different brands and all these celebrities and all these people talk about their brand. The nurse has to see himself or herself as a brand. Okay, now, once you do that, you've then got to decide, okay, I've got to get people to prefer me. What's special about me, right? Well, if you think it's more about your look, you're missing the boat. Pat, I tell people, listen, if you think that a brand is a logo or that your brand are your colors, let's take Coke and Pepsi. I doubt if the Coca-Cola drinkers prefer Coke because it's in a red can and the Pepsi people because it's in a blue can. It's what's inside the can that counts. And so my challenge to the nurses out there is what's inside your can. What are you bringing to the marketplace that sets you apart from the rest of the crowd? Are you willing to dare to be different? Are you willing to be distinct so you do not risk being extinct? And Pat, for all the spiritual people out there, I always tell them this. In order for your God to get a blessing to you, he's got to be able to bless others through you. But the only way he can bless others through you is if you don't look like and sound like everybody else. Because you were born to stand out and not blend in.
And Gerry, have you ever been a minister?
No.
You got the cadence down, boy.
I know what it is. On my mother's side of the family, they were all educators. And on my father's side of the family, my great-great-grandfather was a country preacher named Reverend Scott in Alabama, I was told. And so I have this unique blend of teaching and preaching. And so that's, as Pat, as the brand and evangelist, I am known for preaching and teaching the gospel of big branding. Now, technically, I'm what's called a brand strategist, as opposed to a brand designer. And so just like someone who owns a house cleaning service says they don't do windows, well, I tell people I don't do logos, swag bags, tote bags, websites, and things that people can see, because great brands are built strategically and not visually. No one's going to hire you because of your color scheme or because of how you look on Zoom or sound in Clubhouse, okay? It's not that simple. And here we are on the World Wide Web. Before the pandemic, the number I saw was 1.7 billion websites before the pandemic. So here you are as this star in this giant constellation. So you've got to shine. And that's what I do. I show you how to nail down, when do you shine? When do you sparkle? When do you radiate so you can brand your brilliance? So that goes beyond simply a resume, right? If you feel the need to tell people and impress people with your achievements and awards and education and qualifications and all of that, tell your parents, they'll be impressed, okay? But when you're looking for clients, come on, Pat, when you're looking for clients, all they want to know is, how are you different and why are you better? I have other choices. Why you? That's the key.
And Gerry, how can our listener find out more about you and the services that you offer?
Well, there's a couple of ways. Here's my cell. I'm going to put this out. Area code 310-382-6539. What I love to do is I always tell people, listen, I'm a giver, not a taker. So I created an online assessment tool, which allows your listeners and viewers to muscle test their brand. Send me a text, put your name in it, along with the word quiz, and I'll set you up where you can take an online assessment that I created. It'll take you all of 3 to 5 minutes to complete, where you can see where you're strong, where you're weak, what the missing pieces may be with your brand. And when you hit the submit button, and it's only good, it's 25 questions and you're rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Very simple. Speak your truth, be transparent. And then when you hit the submit button, you're going to get back a report of findings. And now you can look at that and see where you are when it comes to your brand. And even if your scores are low, don't worry about it. Because the bottom line, Pat, is you don't know what you don't know, right? But here's the thing. The worst thing to do is to act like you do know what you don't know, or what you don't know is not that important. Because now you're caught up in your own paradigm, your own belief system. And if you truly want to scale, if you truly want to reach people, have more impact, heal more lives, do what you are on this planet to do, see yourself as a brand and not just a nurse or a provider of skill sets, because many other people can see that as well and say the same thing. You don't want that. So that's what I was saying.
Thank you.
And that's
Thank
myself.
you.
That's myself. Have a personal connection with me.
I think your message has come through loud and clear, Gerry. And thank you so much for participating in this podcast. I'm sure you've gotten the adrenaline flowing of the person who's listening to this program, who's going to go back and say, how am I unique? How am I special? And how am I making my clients feel, and what sets me apart? So if we stimulated some of that thought process in you, the listener or the viewer of this on our YouTube channel, good for you. Take the time to do the introspection. See what you come up with. Put a comment below this video. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, I would love to know what your thoughts are. Thanks so much, Gerry.
Thank you. It really was my pleasure.
Hi, this is Pat Iyer with Legal Nurse Podcast, and I have with me Dr. Stephen Cohen, who is a rectal colon surgeon located in Virginia with experience teaching students, medical students, residents, and interns about his area of expertise and taking care of patients at the VA Medical Center in Richmond. We've just finished recording our podcast, and I can tell you that you'll be fascinated with what Stephen has to say. What are some of the topics that we covered in your podcast, Stephen?
Well, we covered some of the inflammatory bowel conditions, more specifically diverticulitis, how a simple diverticulitis case either met or did not meet the standard of care. We talked about the causes of diverticulitis, how we treat them, the staging of diverticulitis, and more specifically also how, as a legal nurse consultant, by understanding the pathophysiology of how patients present with diverticulitis, you can help the attorney in these cases to come up to the right decision.
Excellent. Be sure to come back to Legal Nurse Podcast in order to hear Stephen Cohen and his discussion about inflammatory bowel conditions within the medical legal framework. These are the kinds of cases that you will encounter if you're involved in medical malpractice cases. They can have potentially very big damages, and they are ones that plaintiff attorneys clearly need help with in terms of evaluating the liability and the damages, and defense attorneys need help with in terms of identifying which ones are defensible and which ones need to be resolved. Thanks so much.